A piece of paper, folded thin enough to slip into a pocket, bears the ghost-white letters, Tamam Shud, pressed in ink. The sun hangs low over the shoreline, its heat wavering like a mirage above the sand. You are 9 days away from the moment when a lone figure, half buried in sea-washed kelp, will be lifted from the tide-kissed dunes of Somerton Beach, an unknown man, his name a blank, his story begun with a cryptic code that will gnaw at investigators for generations. What does Tamam Shud mean? By the end, you'll see that this line of ink is only the first part of a larger, more complex picture. What lies behind the Tamam Shud code, and the mysterious death of the Somerton man? By the end of this narrative you will understand why the code has resisted every attempt to break it, and why it forces us to stare into the shadows of espionage, paranoia, and the hidden corners of human nature. In the sweltering summer of 1948, Adelaide shivered under a relentless heat that made the air taste of metal. The war had ended, yet the city thrummed with a nervous energy, whispers of spies slipped through cafes like steam, and the scent of dried eucalyptus mingled with the coppery tang of fear. Secrets bought and sold in cramped rooms, and truth felt like a luxury no one could truly afford. Alfred Boxall, a 27-year-old mechanic with oil-stained hands, walked the streets with a habit of pausing at any dusty shelf to run his fingers over the spines of forgotten books. He loved puzzles, the way a cracked lock felt under a careful turn, the satisfaction of a cipher finally revealing its pattern. One evening, after a night at the local dance hall where the old jukebox crooned swing tunes, he met a woman whose laughter seemed to echo the clink of glasses. She handed him a battered copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, its cover cracked, its pages yellowed. He could not recall her face, but the worn press of her palm on his wrist lingered, a brief, fleeting contact that would later steer him into a storm of unanswered questions. Within 6 hours, the investigation will take a drastic turn, and the truth will begin to unravel. The beach that night was slick with tidewater, the wind humming a low, mournful tone as it pushed the seafoam against the sand. A lone jogger, breath visible in the chill, stopped dead in his tracks. His eyes caught a shape half emerged from the dunes, a uniform dark suit that seemed to have been pressed smooth by the ocean itself. He approached cautiously, the sand crunching under his boots, every step a small betrayal of the silence that surrounded the scene. The man's eyes were closed, his mouth slightly ajar, as if he had been caught mid-breath. A thin cigarette packet lay in his left hand, its paper slightly damp, and inside, a single piece of paper, identical to the one Alfred would hold days later, bearing the same Tamam Shud script. The wind tugged at the man's hair, lifting it like a veil, and the sun, now a burning orange, cast long shadows that stretched across his still form. The coroner's lantern flickered, its yellow light cutting through the darkness like a blade. A whisper of sea spray brushed the investigator's cheek as he leaned over the body, the metal tray in his other hand reflecting the glint of a distant lighthouse. No identification, no personal effects, only the crumpled cigarette packet and the cryptic paper, a puzzle wrapped in a mystery, waiting to be dismantled. When the story reached the public, the first revelation came with that tiny slip of paper, that single line of foreign words that meant, finished, in Persian. The audience, drawn by the intrigue, needed a guide. If you want to see where this goes, hit subscribe, because what follows will shift the ground beneath every assumption. The case spiraled outward, and the code itself, an assembly of letters, slashes, and symbols, became the subject of fevered speculation. Each character felt like a stone dropped into a still pond, rippling across academic halls and secret agency offices alike. Experts across continents, including analysts from the FBI, sat with magnifying glasses pressed to the page, the faint ink smudged by salt and time. Their eyes darted over each curve, searching for a pattern, a hidden language, a signpost that might point to a larger design. They found none, and the silence in the rooms grew heavier with each failed attempt. Across the city, Alfred Boxall returned home, the Rubaiyat clutched tight. He placed the book on his workbench, the wood warm from the day's labor, and turned its pages slowly, the scent of old paper mingling with the metallic tang of engine oil. On the back, a series of characters mirrored those found on the dead man's paper. His heart beat a measured rhythm, the same cadence he heard when a lock clicked open after a long struggle. He traced the ink with a fingertip, feeling the slight roughness where the pen had pressed too hard, the faint indentations where a hurried hand had tried to hide something. The atmosphere of post-war Australia, still tinged with the nervous hum of intelligence agencies, proved fertile ground for theories. Some suggested the Somerton man was a spy, his body a casualty of a covert operation. The Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, ASIO, released redacted files, the pages crisp and cold, each line a promise of hidden knowledge. Yet many sections remained blacked out, as if the very paper refused to surrender its secrets. Alfred's fascination with puzzles grew into obsession. He kept the Rubaiyat on a shelf by his bedside, the spine creaking each time he reached for it in the quiet of night. He began to write out the symbols over a battered notebook, the graphite leaving faint trails that seemed to whisper back at him. He recalled the woman from the dance hall, how her dress had glittered under the low lights, how her smile had been quick and fleeting. He never learned her name, but her memory lingered like a chord that refused to resolve. The investigation widened, drawing in other mysteries that threaded through the same era. The disappearance of the Beaumont children, the sudden vanishings that left families clutching at hope, all seemed to pulse with the same low, relentless hum. Each case added another piece to a larger pattern that grew more detailed, more troubling, and more complex, as if an unseen force was bringing them together. The code, once viewed as a simple cipher, began to feel like a gateway, a key that might unlock a vault of concealed agendas. Psychologists entered the fray, positing that perhaps the code was not merely a message but a reflection of the Somerton man's own psyche. They imagined a man haunted by fear, his mind encoding anxieties into symbols, the paper a final diary entry written by a trembling hand too weary to speak. The investigation's focus shifted, from the external enemies of a nation to the inner demons that could drive a person to such a silent end. The game grew larger. Imagine a board where each move is a life, each piece a secret, each capture a betrayal. The code, once a single note, now felt like a compass pointing toward an unseen destination. The players, spies, informants, ordinary citizens caught in the crossfire, moved with the precision of shadows, their motives masked by layers of deception. The stakes, once thought to be confined to a single beach, now stretched across continents, echoing in rooms where decisions were made behind closed doors. A new figure emerged in the whispers, a name whispered like a breath, the architect. No photograph existed, no birth certificate, only a silhouette drawn in the margins of a classified report. The architect seemed to be the one who arranged the pieces, pulling strings that stretched far beyond Adelaide's coastline. The code, perhaps, was his signature, a subtle imprint left on an unwitting messenger. The notion of a secret society took root, its members cloaked in anonymity, their influence spreading like ink through water. Researchers pointed to patterns, a symbol here, a phrase there, linking the Somerton case to other unexplained phenomena. The idea that a single, seemingly innocuous piece of paper could be a conduit for a grand, unseen design felt both exhilarating and unsettling. As the layers peeled back, the focus returned to Alfred Boxall and the woman from the dance. He remembered the faint perfume she wore, a hint of jasmine mixed with something metallic, perhaps a hint of the sea. He recalled how she brushed his shoulder, the brief contact leaving a lingering warmth despite the night's chill. Their conversation had been brief, words tumbling over each other in the dim light, yet her gesture of handing him the Rubaiyat felt intentional, as if she wanted to pass something hidden within its pages. He now kept the book close, the edges worn, the ink from the back still barely visible. Night after night, the soft creak of his home's wooden floorboard sounded like a ticking clock, each tick a reminder that the code's mystery was still alive, still breathing in the silence. He would sit at his workbench, the hum of a lone fluorescent bulb casting a pale pool of light, and trace the symbols, hoping to hear a whisper of meaning beneath their static lines. The narrative of the code, once a simple enigma, expanded into a sprawling tableau of espionage, human frailty, and the unrelenting search for meaning. Each discovery, each fragment of evidence, added another note to the composition, increasing the intensity of the story's pulse. The curiosity that began with an inked phrase grew into doubt as the layers of secrecy multiplied, then into discovery with each new document lifted from archives, followed by a shock when the dead man's own identity remained an empty silhouette after decades of scrutiny. Evidence, photographs of the beach, the crumpled packet, the Rubaiyat's back, stacked like bricks, only to be overturned by a reversal, the realization that perhaps the code was never meant to be solved, but to hide something more profound. The final realization arrives not as a neat resolution but as a stark illumination of the human condition. The Tamam Shud code is a reflection of the darker side of humanity, a willingness to conceal, to manipulate, to let shadows dominate the light of truth. It shows that even the simplest object, a folded piece of paper, can carry the weight of countless hidden motives and the echo of silence that follows a life cut short. And as we stand before the endless tide of unanswered questions, one thought lingers: what other secrets lie waiting, cloaked in the ordinary, ready to surface when the right eyes finally see them? The truth may forever elude us, but the chase is what drives the heart of every seeker.